At the ages of 27 and 33, we were relatively young when we tied ourselves in marriage, and our marriage lasted only 2 years. In retrospect, it was a hidden blessing that our union did not last. I couldn't help but reflect on how she had been growing distant from me in the recent months. Her behavior had noticeably shifted with increased time spent on her phone, and even the addition of a passcode, which was a change from before. This seemed unusual to me because we were both absorbed in our work, and I couldn't understand who she might be trying to keep at a distance. She had always been incredibly frank with me, but lately, she didn't seem to want to share the details of her day. The day our marriage came to an end, we made a small date at a cabin almost an hour away from our home. Once we arrived and got settled in, I immediately plugged in my phone as my battery had died. After a while, she asked me to find a recipe because she wanted to make lunch for us. But since my phone was on the charger, I asked to use her phone to find a prescription. She unlocked it and handed it to me while she cooked. As I started searching, I saw a WhatsApp notification that took me by surprise. I didn't even know she had that app installed. As I was on the verge of returning her phone, potentially closing the door to the truth forever, I decided to click on it, revealing a series of messages my wife was exchanging with another person. At first glance, the first 2 messages seemed harmless, just checking on his well-being and expressing how much she longed for his presence. But the tone of the conversation took an unexpected and disturbing turn. The next message sent a shock through me. It read, "I can't get enough of how great you make me feel." At that moment, it seemed as if all the colors had disappeared from my face, and my vision blurred with disbelief. I quickly picked up my phone and quietly walked out of the room, clutching her phone tightly, trying desperately to hide the emotions that were overwhelming me. Pulling myself together, I mentally prepared to dig deeper into the messages, though their scope was much deeper than I had originally intended to explore. After taking snapshots of their conversations, including the heartbreaking, I left the cabin without saying a word to my wife. I made sure to increase the screen time out of her phone so I wouldn't get locked out. As I drove, my mind was consumed with thoughts of my foggy future and the lingering fear of being betrayed again by someone I cared deeply about. In the midst of these tumultuous reflections, I decided to quickly use her phone to prepare a message to her lover, arranging to meet at a restaurant at a designated time and place. He agreed to meet her there. My mind whirled with thoughts of what this man might try to do or how he might try to get back at me, but in the end, none of that mattered. All I longed for was an explanation. I arrived at the designated location and waited for him. As soon as he crossed the threshold of the restaurant, I immediately recognized him from the pictures and videos I found. I took a deep breath, walked to him, and gently placed an arm around his shoulders. Startled, he pulled away quickly. Before he could utter a word, I revealed my true identity and told him that he had stolen my wife. I offered to discuss the matter, leading him to a nearby table. Discreetly, I turned on the recording function on my phone, where all the evidence concerning my wife's affair was stored. Then I asked him to confess everything. At first, he looked extremely unsure, but I reassured him by telling him that it was the bare minimum he could do. Gradually, he began to tell the truth. He admitted that he had been involved with my wife for about 10 months. Their connection quickly blossomed after meeting through co-workers, and he confessed that she was his mistress. He sincerely confessed that he was deeply in love with her. Realizing that I no longer needed her, I told him that he could have her for himself. Grateful that he had relieved me of the heavy burden of 18 years of alimony, I thanked him, reported her whereabouts, and asked him to take her away. It was with a heavy heart that I decided to return home, despite its ruin. Discovering the true picture of events was invaluable to me. As I sat there, lost in thought, my phone suddenly rang. It startled me, as it was a landline from the cabin where my wife and I had stayed. She asked if I was all right and why I had left so suddenly. In her explanation, she said she couldn't find her phone and didn't know there was a landline. I couldn't hold back and accused her of having an affair, calling her a liar and a cheat. I firmly stated that she should not have let me see her phone if she had secrets to hide. My words caught her off guard, and she stuttered, trying to come up with excuses. Sensing her confusion, I assured her that no explanation was necessary, as I had already met her lover and collected all the necessary evidence. Her surprise turned to desperation as she screamed, trying to find out what I knew. I informed her that the man she was seeing was on his way to pick her up and asked her to pack her things. Despite her attempts to intervene, I abruptly ended the conversation. As soon as I got home, I quickly packed the essentials for survival for a few weeks, unsure how long she would be in the house. Finding solace in the prenuptial agreement we signed before getting remarried, protecting me from losing the house or alimony, I sought comfort from my best friend. To my surprise, he not only found a place for me to stay but also arranged a meeting with his cousin, an experienced divorce attorney. While I waited for my friend to pick me up, my wife unexpectedly returned home with her lover. Despite the situation, she directed her anger at me, which seemed absurd given the circumstances. She questioned me repeatedly, not grasping the seriousness of the situation. It was clear she was in complete shock. In response, I played the recording of her lover detailing the beginnings of their relationship and their intimate encounters. She was stunned and began to sob, vehemently denying the extent of their involvement, insisting he had exaggerated their connection. Unbeknownst to her, he was standing in the doorway and overheard her words. Clearly offended, he left quickly. I silently applauded his decision to leave, while my wife screamed in annoyance. I firmly told her to pack her things and leave the house, as it rightfully belonged to me. Additionally, I informed her that I would send the divorce papers to her parents' place of residence. She sat on the step outside, tears streaming down her face, as I left my house. Later, I found out that my ex-wife was still living with her parents, as her boyfriend had abruptly ended their relationship after only 2 months. Unfortunately, her parents could not help her, and she was forced to move into a cramped apartment with her younger sister. Meanwhile, I found the love of my life, and now we are looking forward to the arrival of our child. I am confident that my new spouse is faithful and affectionate. I am thankful that I had the courage to leave my ex-wife and not try to reconcile, as it ultimately led me to find great happiness. I am deeply relieved that I did not have to raise a child from adultery or bear the financial burden of years of alimony. It was fortunate that I learned the truth in time and had the strength to take the necessary action. My ex-wife had an affair with a colleague at work, disregarding the sanctity of our marriage. But it's worth noting that in the end, even the man she was cheating with decided to leave her. My story illustrates the principles of karma and the law of the boomerang, as I learned from a close friend who saw my ex-spouse after she moved in with her younger sister. Her life was turned upside down upon hearing this news, but that was no longer my concern. What would you have done in my place? Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, take care.